Welcome, everyone, to the Black and White History Podcast. We are your hosts, Christian and.
Sic semper tyrannis. Thus always I bring death to tyrants.
Is that a quote?
Yeah, I think it's Tacitus
Oh, okay.
or something.
Well.
I'm Jordan. I'm not Tacitus.
I was gonna say, as you clicked on the title, we're talking about that.
Yeah,
So,
yeah.
Tacitus, not Lincoln.
Yeah, we're going way back in history. So, no, we're talking. So, in the last episode,
Previously on Black and White History.
no, slaves demonetized. Yeah, we got into Abraham Lincoln, his early life, and when he was elected in 1860, he assumes office in 1861 and immediately violates the Constitution.
Okay. Yes.
Immediately violates the Constitution. The argument is they started it, and they've kind of been violating the Constitution for a while now. So what's one more?
Sometimes you gotta, in order to
Something about eggs and omelets and such.
yeah. Oh yeah. Well, in order to save a million people, you have to sacrifice a few dozen.
Well, I don't know if that's true, but maybe, I don't know. So yeah, and like I said, if you didn't watch the first episode, you should watch the first episode of the Lincoln series, the Lincoln Saga. But I'll say it again so that it's on record again. Abraham Lincoln, top 5 presidents. I like Lincoln. He's a swell guy. A lot of guys don't
I
like
knew
him.
that was coming.
I like him. Emancipation. Illegal seizure of property.
Worst Confederacy ever. Down
Jefferson
there.
Davis. What a loser.
Yeah.
He looks like Abraham Lincoln. Did you know that? Wow. Built like a worm. I'd put the world on his shoulders, but it'd fall off. Anyways,
If I were president, you'd be in jail.
Abraham Lincoln. One day I'm going to put you in jail without charges. And then he did. Yes, so...
Yeah, so we're picking up right at the Habeas Corpus.
Yeah, which was not long after the inauguration, but it wasn't just like willy-nilly. So
Yeah, go ahead. Explain
okay. So
Article 6.
yes. So Lincoln is elected in November of 1860, but he doesn't assume office. The inauguration, the transfer of power doesn't happen until at this time. It doesn't happen until March. And so when he is elected in November, the Confederacy basically has all winter and part of spring to like whip themselves into even more of a frenzy. Oh,
Sorry.
oh, that was a good one. That was a good one. And so they're all spun up and they start formalizing their Confederate government. They have President Jefferson Davis.
It's weird how lost in history Jefferson Davis.
Because he lost.
Yeah, but also just like most people don't even think you've really heard of him.
No, I mean you think of like there's so many.
You think
high
it's like, oh, the
schools.
Confederate. Everyone knows about the Confederacy. Everyone knows about
Robert
the
E.
Southern.
Lee.
Yeah, Robert E. Lee. Everyone knows, but like the president of that, like who?
Yeah. But if you think about it, like I can see how people would know about Lee more than Davis, because like sort of like how if we had lost the Revolutionary War, we wouldn't know. Well, Washington was president after that, but like we know about Washington because he was the general. But if we had lost and didn't have a president like after that, then we would only know him as the general. And so yeah, there was like a wartime president, but since he lost, like he didn't actually do anything, so he's not as important in the general consensus. It is important because like Jefferson Davis is the leader of the Confederacy. That all the states, the Confederate states, decided to be their representative. So I guess we might do a mini episode on Jefferson Davis.
Yeah.
Not a president, but also president of half of the country that lost. But I don't know. We'll talk about that. Maybe that'll be a rumble. That's for the Patreon. But so they all the southern states, and if you look at the electoral map from the election of 1860, put it up on the screen. There is a big old line, and it's the South and the North, and California and Oregon. But they're kind of out of this deal. So all those states in the South have all winter to form their own government. And again, like the South had legal arguments for why they could secede, why they should secede. They felt like they were being oppressed and manipulated by the Northern interests. They felt like they weren't being adequately represented. And the biggest thing over all of that was they wanted to keep their slaves. And part of that was because they believed black people were inferior. The other part of it is slavery made them a whole lot of money. And a whole lot of money. And not
For
ironically.
rich people,
Yeah.
not for the common folk.
No.
At this point, the common folk did not have slaves. It
No,
was-
no, like 92 or 93% of people
it's like the housing market today.
did not have slaves. Yeah. Most people, the vast, vast majority of people did not have slaves. And I mean, it depends on who you ask and the sources and all that stuff about sentiment at the time. But like most people didn't care too much about slavery because they didn't own slaves. Like they worked their farms. I think there was probably some conflict because, well, you can't beat free labor. So it's not free. You have to pay for upkeep and overhead for slaves. So it's not totally free, but you don't have to pay them wages. So the one of the biggest expenses of any business is payroll. So there's that. And if you eliminate that, then that's all profit, baby. So if you are a farmer and you just have your own hired hands that you have to pay, you either have to sell your goods for more money to cover your losses and make a profit and keep going, or you don't make money at all. And if I have slaves and I have cut out a massive part of my expenses because I don't have to pay for payroll and they still produce as much as your farm, I can sell those goods for way, way cheaper and pocket all that profit and get more slaves and get more land and produce even more. It's a self-perpetuating thing. I'll buy your farm. I'll make you a slave. How about that? I don't know if that happened. Indentured servants, that's a thing that happened. But anyways, it's an economic business thing too. And the South, plantation owners and farmers, because of the cotton gin had just been invented. So before this is a factor. Trust me, it's a thing. So the cotton gin basically, when you pick cotton, have you picked cotton? Like raw cotton?
I don't think so.
You'd know. You'd remember. It's hot. Raw cotton has a lot of seeds and stuff in it and needs to be processed. So it grows on a plant and you pick it and there's all sorts of stuff on it. And you basically have to comb out and pick all the seeds and imperfections out of it and then pack it all in before it can be processed into stuff. The cotton gin is like a bunch of rollers and stuff that basically scrape all the fibers and process the cotton way, way faster. So it makes it cheaper to produce. You can produce larger quantities because you don't have to wait to process it all. So it made it a lot cheaper, which meant that people who farmed cotton would make a lot more money doing it. And so they're like, right when we're about to make record profits, you're going to take away my labor force? Hell no, techno. We're going to have a war about it. So that was another big factor. So the slaves, I think the South is somewhat misrepresented. It's not as black and white as the South liked slaves and hated black people, so they fought a war against the North. Because there were slaves in the North. Northerners, the country as a whole, but Northerners, did not like black people in general, did not view them as equal to white people in general, but did not support them being slaves necessarily. So the big, and the North being bankers and having industry and processing factories, manufacturing, all that stuff, benefited a lot. They made a lot of money too from having suppliers that use slave labor. They could buy their products cheaper, meaning that they also made more money. So there were many, many factors. They revolved around slavery, and the North wanted to fully abolish slavery, meaning that it would cut the economic floor out from under the South, basically. Not that they would be completely destitute necessarily, but they would not nearly be as rich.
Yeah.
So
no, it would totally be an economic crash.
It would be.
Yeah.
It would be. That's why after the war it was called Reconstruction, because it was bad. We'll get to Reconstruction. So that was the framework for the Civil War. Now, Lincoln is elected in 1860. They stew over this in the South all winter. We get to 1861. He assumes office, and then the Confederacy formally secedes from the Union. Under contested and auspicious circumstances, the South asserts that they have the right to secede because the Constitution doesn't say that they don't have the right to secede. The North says, you can't secede. This is a partnership that you entered into. You can't just leave We have assets, we have people, we have systems, we have things. We're a united country for perpetual union. We're fighting to keep this union together. There are mechanisms by which you can change the structure of the country and its governance and its laws baked into the Constitution. So you have to play by the established rules that you agreed to. You can't just take your ball and go home, basically, is what the North said. And there was a fundamental disagreement, so they had a war about it. The big thing, so now it's March of 1861. The Confederacy declares their secession, and shortly after that, we're going to talk about war a little bit. War is...
Well, yeah, Confederacy was in February.
Yeah, they established their Confederacy in February.
And then Lincoln takes over in March.
And then they say, we are seceding.
Yeah. Well, no, it was already...
It was well known. Lincoln takes over power, and then, I would say that's when the war really starts.
Well, I mean, it was kind of like, it was more... It wasn't that, is the war going to happen? It was more, what day is the war going to happen?
Yeah, it was a foregone conclusion, probably for several years at this point.
Yeah.
And I'm not saying that that's when the war formally started. I think people can disagree on that. But I think, Lincoln's the guy who ran the Civil War, so he gets into power. Then anything that happens after that. But that's just my opinion. It's not an official thing. People can disagree. So war, especially, all war is logistics. Getting people and supplies, ammunition, material, shoes, from having the people to manufacture those things, having the infrastructure to move them to where the soldiers are so that they can fight the war. That is a major thing. So supply lines, if you cut the enemy supply lines, they can't pay, feed, clothe, or equip their soldiers, and they will lose. Now, Washington, D.C., the Union capital, is right next door to Maryland. Maryland is a slave state. And they didn't secede, but they are not too pleased because it kind of cuts into their profit margins. And there are a lot of Confederate sympathizers in Maryland. And so Maryland, being very close to D.C., being right along a supply line through New York and Pennsylvania, it's right there with them. There start to be attacks on supply lines, Union supply lines. Sabotage. It's not like the Confederate Army marched up there and did it. It was state militia people, regular citizens. I'm sure some people snuck up there and did stuff, but they were disrupting Union supply lines, basically trying to smother the Union Army in the crib before the war even really got started, because they knew if we can cut their supply lines and we still have ours, then we will just steamroll them and win. So that starts happening in late March, early April of 1861. Near the third or fourth week of April 1861, Lincoln does something controversial, let's say. So we're going to say habeas corpus a lot.
Yeah.
Habeas corpus is Latin for show me the body.
Yes.
Basically.
Right.
And it is it is hundreds and hundreds of years old, legal precedent, from the Magna Carta in the 11th century, so the 1200s. And it basically says that any government can't just pick anyone up off the street and arrest them without telling them what they're being arrested for and holding them indefinitely without a trial. That's habeas corpus. So, and in the Constitution it says, and this is kind of whether he could suspend habeas corpus kind of gets sticky.
Let's remember, Lincoln is a now decades experienced lawyer.
He is a lawyer and a politician. He's an educated man. He's self-educated. So he knows how to research stuff.
And this is totally the difference between him and, let's say, Zachary Taylor, who was the last Whig president and kind of known as maybe he was the one that could have stopped the Civil War. Well, he's just a war general guy with really no formal education. Not Lincoln wasn't formally educated, but self-educated. Yeah. And so for someone to be able to pull this off had to be someone who knew how to be a lawyer and take whatever pieces they can to manipulate the truth in order to present whatever evidence they have. And, so
you say what you want about Lincoln, and I have my own qualms about him, but he was a damn good lawyer.
Yeah.
He was a damn good lawyer. And that's all law is. That's what lawyering in court is you make an argument and support it. And it doesn't matter if It doesn't matter. It's not what you know, it's what you can prove. It doesn't matter if your argument, your legal argument makes no sense, but if you have the backing or the law is sufficiently ambiguous or uncertain about the legal claim you're making, then you kind of can do it unless a judge says not to. And then you run into the same thing that we've run into with several precedents. Like, even if the court says not to, who's going to enforce that? So, okay, habeas corpus. The government can't arrest you without giving you a charge. They can't just pull you off the street and arrest you and hold you indefinitely. Now, in the Constitution, in Article 1, Section 9, which is the section that is about what Congress can and can't do, so it is not about the presidency, it's about Congress. It says, the privilege of the writ of habeas corpus shall not be suspended unless when in cases of rebellion or invasion, the public safety may require it. That is that sufficiently ambiguous and mysterious thing, because it does not explicitly say who can suspend habeas corpus or what, rebellion or invasion, the public safety may require it. Who determines if a rebellion or invasion is sufficiently endangering public safety? Who makes that determination? Who can challenge it? Like, there is nothing about that. So, the only thing that the critics of what Lincoln did, the only case that they can really make is that this language is in the section about Congress. It's not about the president. And Lincoln's argument is, yeah, it's in that section, but it doesn't explicitly say who can and can't and under what circumstances other than rebellion or invasion. Okay. So if you're on Lincoln's side, the Union Army is being sabotaged, the supply lines are being attacked by the Confederacy, who, if you believe that we are still one nation, they don't have a legal right to secede or attack federal troops or supplies, then that is absolutely a rebellion or an invasion. Therefore, public safety is at risk. Therefore, I can suspend habeas corpus. The Confederacy and other people who disagreed said the opposite. Like, again, the core legal argument is that the states have the right to secede because the Constitution doesn't say that they can't. And so it's not a rebellion because they're allowed to. And now we're in war with two ostensibly independent nations. Sabotage is a thing that you can do in war. So you can't suspend habeas corpus for everyone in this specific area and just pull people off the street, even though they're not. If they're citizens of the United States, they still have their rights.
Well, yeah, we haven't mentioned this yet. I think another piece of this also, whether or not you agree with him doing this or not, is the fact that him leading up to the presidency and then becoming president and the war starting, the amount of legitimate plots of assassination that were happening was literally everywhere, including people in Congress and people and this is it's weird because we're not at the point where we've had a president assassinated yet.
They tried.
So it's like, you have to kind of look at it through a different kind of perspective of that's normal to us now. The danger of our president actually being assassinated is a legitimate, that has happened enough times for us to have to wait for it to happen again, basically. But still, just the absolute just paranoia and him having to secretly hide in trains for him to go to the next area he's traveling to, and there was even I know there was at least one famous assassination attempt where he was riding a horse somewhere and someone shot right through his top hat. His top hat flew off or whatever.
Oh,
and
heavens!
Yeah, so it's and I know we were mentioning this earlier, but just the idea of wartime presidents and peacetime presidents are just always going to be, they're in their own separate category. For a reason. So it sucks that we didn't really get to see Lincoln as a peacetime president post-war, and so we're kind of left with this whole idea of this is a very authoritarian takeover thing he's doing with suspending habeas corpus in the midst of just the whole country being fractured right down the middle, literally and metaphorically. Anyway, I don't
know. No, it's an important consideration on both points. War is incredibly messy, and decisions have to be made very, very quickly, or many people will die, or you could lose the war. One battle could determine the outcome of the war and therefore in this case the outcome of the country and the union that and the Constitution that we're all arguing about, but has now reached such a fever pitch that we're actually fighting each other over it. And yeah, I mean, it's one thing if the enemy is Great Britain that has to sail across the ocean, and you have some time to figure out logistics. Also, Great Britain is not like literally one state over.
Or maybe in Congress.
Yeah. Or in your town, like on your block. So it's a very, very different thing. The risk and the danger of assassination when you're talking about a civil conflict is way, way higher. I mean, still, like if a French person wanted to come over and assassinate Abraham Lincoln, they'd still have to like go over the ocean. Like there's still time to get stuff established and security and all this stuff. And there is no time for that. They are literally trying to kill him before he's even inaugurated. Like so many letters are like, you're not going to make it to this inauguration. You will not be president, not because you weren't voted in, but because you will be killed. Like there was like I didn't research it, I just heard it. So, take it with a grain of salt, but like a January 6th type of plot to prevent the inauguration from even happening, which was thwarted. He was inaugurated, but like it was a very, very serious, unprecedented thing that was happening to Lincoln. And so like the harsh actions that he took basically immediately upon taking office, not immediately, like a month, but pretty soon, very, very soon after taking office. Like I don't think it's fair to say that he was like, haha, now I'm in power and I get to imprison people. It's like, I'm in power and we are like, war is literally right over there. We need to do something about this. What can we do about this? We have to suspend habeas corpus. Like we don't have time. They will destroy our supply lines and we will lose this war before we can like go through and investigate and figure out who's who and have court
and
cases.
Wait for Congress to come into session so we can debate.
We have to debate and find out. Like we don't have time for that. We really don't. We're going to lose this war. And so he makes a unilateral decision. We're going to suspend habeas corpus. And it wasn't like throughout the entire country. It was like in this area where these attacks were happening and along critical supply routes. So you can see, like, I'm not trying to take over the whole country. I'm just trying to make sure that, like, our supplies for wartime, like, are protected. Which, as commander-in-chief, that's kind of his job, to run the war and make sure the war continues so that we can win. It is a big... I mean, it's a big thing. Like, because at first it started with people suspected of being, like, I was communist, Confederate sympathizers. And then it expanded to newspapers and journalists who were criticizing his suspension of habeas corpus because, for similar reasons, like you're going to drum people up into fighting the government. You're going to start spreading this information around, and it's going to hurt the war effort. And you're right next door, so it expanded and expanded and expanded. Stephen Douglas, who was his Secretary of State.
Was he in his cabinet?
He was.
Oh, okay.
He was Secretary of State.
I know he wasn't his vice president.
No, but the Secretary of State. Stephen Douglas, I mean, really tried to, I mean, like the federal authorities who were going out, like there were some federal troops, there were some not uniform plainclothes federal officers who went in to do these things. Like secret police has like negative connotations, but it kind of was a secret police to go in and do this. But they would like smash printing presses so that like opposition journalists could not print their papers. They ended up, I mean, figures kind of vary because kind of by necessity, you don't have like warrants or they haven't appeared in court. So you don't know exactly how many people got arrested, but like it's anywhere between 12 to like 18,000 people were arrested. During that war. It was a lot of people, and they were held in forts, like military prisons. Like they weren't necessarily ill-treated. They weren't like tortured or anything that we know of. Probably not. There's no real reason to. They just wanted to stop them from doing stuff. But with any like large group of people in the 1860s, like people died from just disease, just being crowded in with each other. That's a really, really, really messy part of Lincoln's presidency. And do I agree with it? I think his reasons for doing it, like his own internal reasons and explanations for doing it, make sense. They make sense. From a legal standpoint, no. He did not have the authority to do it. He shouldn't have done it, legally speaking. Other presidents, previous presidents, because there had been, like, again, secession had been a thing that had been threatened over and over again for like the past 10, 15 years over the slavery issue. And other presidents really didn't have the balls to do anything about it. Who was it? Either Pierce or Buchanan. I think it was Buchanan, who basically said, like, I want to stop them from seceding, but I don't have the legal authority to do it, so I can't do it. And Lincoln said, basically to the effect, yes, this is the law, but if I uphold this law and we lose the war, all the other laws are going to get broken anyways. Yeah. So if I break this one law to preserve the entire Union and Constitution, that's a trade-off I'm willing to make. And, like, I get it. Legally, he is not allowed to do it, but I understand why he did it.
Yeah, it's interesting how we have moments in history where the more presidents we get, you have like these big moments like this where it's like the presidency, just how we view it changes. And by changes, I mean like it gets bigger. Mm-hmm. So like you go from like Washington to Andrew Jackson and just kind of like how he used executive power to kind of like, okay, now we're here. And then you have, I guess Lincoln would probably be the next big example of that. Yeah. So now we're here, and then you have like FDR. Now we're, and then now it's just kind of like, oh yeah, the president, January 21st, he's going to sign 700 executive orders to like, and that's just like how it is now because of these steps we've taken to where we've made the presidency bigger. Mm-hmm. And it's a lot of time. It's sure, I mean, depending on your perspective, it's like for like a good reason in the time, but it's like there's no going back. Now it's like this is just how the presidency is now.
Yeah, it's yeah, like you said, Washington said don't even have political parties, and now we're like, we're just going to suspend habeas corpus because we think it's the right thing to do.
Yeah, I mean, there's been presidents who like it's not like every single president after was like more executive every single time. No. There's times, I mean, Calvin Coolidge is probably an example of kind of like, okay, I think the progressive era was fine, but let's pull back now and let me just, I don't really want to be a big part of your life, more of like a Washington thing. Mm-hmm. So it's like, okay, fine, maybe it went down a little bit, but that's just an anomaly for him, not the presidency as
an office.
Yeah, as an office.
Yeah. As a whole, as a matter of course, the power of any institution, when given the opportunity to amass more power, will do so and will almost never give it back. Almost never. Yeah, and very much like Jackson with, I can't even remember the name of his issue, but there was an issue where like the Supreme Court said, no, you absolutely cannot do this.
Yeah, it was for the Indian Removal.
Yes, the Indian Removal Act. That's what it was.
And he said, okay, well, there's the first time of like, let's see what they do.
Yeah, you can't enforce it. You can't enforce it. So in 1861, the Supreme Court actually ruled only Congress can suspend habeas corpus. So like they made that legal distinction clear. And then Lincoln, not in the same way, because Jackson said, well, try and stop me. Mm-hmm. And Lincoln said, just what I said earlier, like, I'm breaking this one law so that the rest of the nation continues to function. With the implication of, like, I'm the commander-in-chief of the military, you're just a dude in a robe and a wig, so, like, what are you going to do about it, basically? So, yeah, he just did it. He kind of just did it.
I guess, yeah. Probably move on to something else. I feel like
we've beaten that dead horse. Yeah. That was a big thing.
That's the big contention, I guess, with his presidency. I guess, I mean, Lincoln wasn't he was briefly in the Black Hawk War in Illinois, which
it's like a regional conflict.
Yeah, it was kind of like natives were like, wait, this treaty doesn't say that. Yes, it does. And there was like a short little thing, whatever.
It's a spat, really.
Yeah, it was a spat that he was involved in, but he didn't, like, he signed up for it as like a state militia kind of thing or whatever, but he didn't actually see any combat or anything. And so to go from that to now commander-in-chief for the Civil War and like having to like meddle and like how does war work, and not saying he didn't know, but
how does war happen? Ulysses, help.
I know there's again, I guess like a modern sensibility of looking back and be like, wow, the war probably could have been a lot shorter if he wasn't so micromanage the whole thing. And some of the officers that he fired that wasn't really necessary.
Yeah, you kind of got to let war play out
Right,
a
yeah.
little bit and let the experts kind of do like they've
George McClellan is like
Yeah.
who I was thinking of.
yeah. So like remember we just had the Mexican American War, so we have experienced generals. So you kind of need to let the generals lead the troops. They understand tactics more. Like I understand the concept of tactics, like oh, get the high ground and go around and attack from range and blah 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 blah. I understand like the concept of it, but that's very different from someone who has had to go out and actually do it and find out exactly how it works and how it doesn't work and how to relay those orders to other officers so that they do it properly. Like that's a very different animal than just oh, we'll just go take Richmond. Like
Yeah.
well, there's more to it than that. So he did kind of hamstring himself, and we'll do specific episodes on like the war itself. But the Union was losing the war very
Yeah, it
like
did not
very
start
very
out.
badly.
Yeah.
It went from oh we lost a couple to we've lost pretty much every single battle, and we are bleeding troops and bleeding money, and like the best they could hope for was like a stalemate or like a not catastrophic loss. So and when you start losing public sentiment too. Because again, like not everyone, most people didn't have slaves, didn't really care about slavery, didn't want their sons and husbands and brothers to go die for people who they didn't benefit from and didn't particularly like in the first place anyways. Plus all the unconstitutional illegal stuff that Lincoln had done. It's like, if you're going to do something like that, you better pull out a W real quick to like make it seem like it's worth all this stuff that we're doing.
Yeah, and we haven't even mentioned. I mean, obviously, war is very expensive,
It's incredibly expensive.
and I know we went from like hundreds of millions, which currency back then, in debt, to now entering like a couple $billion in debt, and so once the war was all finished and everything, and so just like, yeah, we really had. If I look at it now, it's like we were only $2 billion in debt. Like,
Wow.
I'll take that, you know.
Yeah, that's pennies, really.
Yeah.
Instead of like 11 bajillion
Yeah.
dollars. It's like a
Right.
made up number.
1 month of tariffs today would have paid that whole thing off
Exactly.
like 10 times over.
We can
but-
have like 40 civil wars. Let's do that. Let's not do that.
But yeah, anyway, so it's interesting because it's like you're president for 4 years, but really you're only president for like 2 because then you have like midterms and like people want like immediate
Yeah.
like success right off the bat, and so yeah, it's hard to like if one thing you start losing these battles or you start raking up a bunch of debt or start firing some generals that and start meddling too much, making the problem worse. Like really quickly sentiment turns on you, and then you start losing like House members and start losing senators and stuff during the midterms, and then
Now we can't legally pass laws
Right, yeah.
to do the things that I was elected to do. But I mean, that never stopped Abraham Lincoln. So, it's not really that big of a deal,
yeah.
honestly. Yeah, he needed a win. He needed a win so that he could, who's to say like his strategy and plans. I mean, he wrote a lot of letters and stuff that we found, but the Emancipation Proclamation happened after not even like a big win. It was just a win, and it was just not a big loss. So he was like, haha, the Union is righteous in their mission. Emancipation Proclamation.
yeah, I guess we should start getting into that. We actually haven't even mentioned the 13th Amendment yet, but
No, we'll get there. We're here now.
yeah. So yeah, and I'm interested when we watch the Lincoln movie review it because I know it'll explain a ton like POV.
Yeah. The
With all that.
politicking
Yeah,
and
yeah,
how
yeah.
to get that done.
But even with Lincoln having, because let's see, it was in 1863, so it would have been even after midterms. Yeah, because it's like, obviously, if anyone doesn't know, president can't just say, I have an amendment I want to pass, and it's this thing here. Fine, you can do it with habeas corpus, I guess, but you can't
I mean,
do that
what-
with,
you can't do it with a constitution.
yeah, you can't just add to the Constitution. So the whole idea is you need, which you probably know it's more than me, but
2/3 of
is it 2/3? Okay. So yeah, you need 2/3 of Congress to be able to pass for an amendment. And so, yeah, you have the majority that are Republicans, but the idea of 66%.
Yeah, that's basically impossible.
Yeah.
Even back then, when people were like more amicable, it was still basically impossible. And again, remember, the Union is losing the war.
Yeah.
And people are not bought into like abolition or emancipation as much as the Republicans are. And even in the Republican Party, it's like, yeah, we want this, but like, it's going to cost me a lot. Like, this may cost me my seat if I vote for this. And it might cost me my head if I vote for this and we lose, which we are losing right now. So you want me to just go all out and burn every possible bridge to get this one thing done for you when we're down 36-0 in the third quarter?
Yeah.
Like, I don't know. It's a hard sell, man.
Well, yeah, and I think it even came down to where it was like, okay, we just need 5
Yeah,
more
it's like
votes.
just a handful
and so
of votes.
it
And
was
they
this like pretty questionable lobbying on. I know there's a lot of
There's some whipping.
yeah.
There was some whipping
Yeah.
that needed to be done. Yeah, it was like down to like the very last vote, like almost the very last vote. But it did pass.
Yeah. So, 13th Amendment passed. I guess it doesn't get officially like ratified and everything till after his, because I know it technically happens under Andrew Johnson as vice president, if he becomes president, but it at least gets passed under his first term, or I guess would technically
His only term.
Yeah, really.
I mean, he won re-election.
He did, yeah. Yeah, it's also weird that he is the first president to win a second term since Andrew Jackson. Is that wild?
There's something about grabbing your balls and defying the Supreme Court that people just go crazy for. It's like, yeah, screw those ninnies.
Which part of it is, he wins re-election because there's no southern states anymore.
Hooray!
None of them are part of the...
We won the war. Yeah. There's no paper anymore. We burned it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So 1864 now rolls around, and all the Confederacy is not going to be part of this election.
No, they're not. They're kind of a non-factor.
You basically only have like Northern Democrats and Republicans. So it's
and Louisiana.
Yeah, Louisiana just like, now we're good actually.
Yeah, totally. Yeah, we love Lincoln. Yeah. We do. Please don't burn us.
Yeah. 212 to 21.
It's a landslide.
True.
The people love me.
Judge McClellan, who he fired, kind of just runs as like a bitter anti-Lincoln. I'm just pissy over.
I'm just mad.
Me. And then he wins that, and then let's see, he gets us. Before we move on now to his assassination, I guess his happens only like a week after his inauguration, and I'm pretty sure it was like John Wilkes Booth was at the inauguration, and there's multiple secondhand accounts of him like plotting with multiple people to. And it was like, oh, this will be his last speech, or just like kind of something like that. And so,
like, all right, John, you're an actor. You're a little dramatic by nature, so okay.
But yeah, what's crazy because he had the plan was that it was basically like him and like his whole cabinet were supposed to be assassinated. He had like multiple people that were going to go out, and it was this huge, actual organized mob.
And none of that happened.
And then none of it happened. So, except for the one that really counted.
Yeah,
so.
John got the job done.
Yeah.
Unfortunately, I mean, yeah. So. I didn't know this until recently. I thought Lincoln died, like, usually getting shot in the head makes you die.
Yeah, I don't know. He
like,
still was alive for like a few more hours until the next morning or whatever.
I thought it was a few days.
No, he died the next day.
Oh, well, still, that's better than most people get shot in the head. Usually you're done.
Yeah.
But especially from like that
right
close of
directly
range. And like these are not small, but like it's a rock. Explosion powered rock going into your head from like 2 feet away. Like usually that's lights out. No, he didn't immediately die. I don't think he was saying much, but
no, I'm sure he was. His heart was still pumping as much as it could, but I don't think he was at all like.
And I think this.
I think he was pretty much brain dead.
Yeah.
But,
yeah. So, we make light of it, but that's like the first actual assassination of a president, and it's a big deal. It's a big deal, and I think too. With other presidents, you can say, "Oh, well, what would have happened in their second term?" And because now Lincoln's won the war at this point, and his focus is preserving the Union, bringing the South back into.
I should mention that Civil War does end.
So. Oh yeah, we win. The Union won the Civil War. So the Lincoln and Ulysses S. Grant work really, really hard to not number one. To preserve the Union, which was their whole stated goal of this war, is to keep this a united country. And to do that, functionally, you can't like start hanging and executing the rebel leaders because they have just lost the war. They still have a lot of guns and ammunition, and they're still really riled up about this war, this whole issue, this whole thing. And so if you start taking their property and hanging people and punishing them for the rebellion, you're going to start an insurgency within your own country that will probably never end. And so Lincoln and Grant were very, very adamant that the war is over. We are still one country. So everybody go home to your farms, rebuild. We're one country. We're not going to hold it against you. We're not going to imprison. We're not even going to like execute or imprison Jefferson Davis.
Right. Yeah.
We're not going to do any of that. We're all going to go home and we're going to be a country again. And that was like their goal.
He's like, okay, now I can be a peacetime president.
You know what I need?
There's a play.
The theater.
Yeah.
What a great way to relax. Anyways, Reconstruction. Yes. So other presidents, we just have speculation on what they would have done if they had made it deeper into their term, like Zachary Taylor or whoever. And no, he would have avoided the war altogether because he was a strong, decisive leader and blah, 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 blah. And it's, like I said, it's all speculation at that point. For Lincoln, we actually have, like, we know that his policies on Reconstruction, like he had demonstrated actions, how he ended the war and reached the agreements with the Confederacy were a very, very clear signal of how he was going to handle Reconstruction. And I think if he had lived and was able to walk out that plan, Reconstruction in the South would have gone a lot better than it did. It would have gotten a lot better for the South a lot faster than it did.
Yeah, I mean, I think Grant did pretty well for.
He did,
but you know,
he's not Lincoln.
Yeah, the thing is though, it's like if we had Andrew Johnson in between, and so who's his vice president, who is a Democrat, who is going to be like, cool. Let's maybe try to walk some of this back.
Yeah.
And there's a huge. We'll cover him more, but. He ends up being the first president impeached and one vote away from being voted out of office.
Ooh, that's so close.
Yeah.
That almost never happens.
Yeah. So that ends up, and then, you know, that starts introducing the first wave of the Klan, and there's a lot of stuff that Grant has to deal with once Andrew Johnson's out of there.
Yeah.
So,
yeah.
But, anyway.
So, yeah, Lincoln, like I said at the beginning, and in part one, Lincoln, top 5 presidents for sure. He was what I think the country needed at the time. And I think while I do in principle, like the legal principle, disagree with like the actions that he took, I think if he didn't do that, we would have lost the war.
Yeah.
It would have been lost very, very early on. And, you know, there's arguments about like the U.S. was like one of the last countries like in the West to abolish slavery. And we had to have a war about it, but like Great Britain was able to end slavery without a war, but like the context of
that's not
Britain is not the same.
Right.
And
we're the youngest country ever.
Yes.
And so it's like we didn't have thousands of years beforehand to like try to lobby our way into abolishing it. It was still kind of a new thing because of how new our country was.
Yeah, we inherited slavery kind of from
yeah.
England. And so and also like when England did abolish slavery, they did something. They basically paid slave owners to free their slaves.
Yeah, we didn't really talk about that.
So Lincoln tried doing
do
that. He tried doing that before the war, and the South just wouldn't have it.
Yeah.
And you know, again, you can kind of understand their logic. Like, I'm fitting to make a whole boatload of money off of this, and slaves are
$300 isn't going to cover.
Yeah, slaves are a renewable resource.
It was like around that.
I think it was $300. Slaves are a renewable resource, and they will produce me way more than $300. So I'm not taking your $300. I'm not doing it. So he did try to do other things, which again, like all the anti-Lincoln guys or the guys who are really against him are really focused on the things that he did early in the war that we've discussed. Yeah, I don't think he was actually like a tyrant because he could have gone way, way further with the things that he did. He didn't have to try to come up with another solution to get people to release their slaves willingly. He tried.
Yeah.
He tried. I don't think he was a warmonger. I don't think he wanted war. I think he was I think he was a good person who was in an impossible situation. And
and also, you know, being able to put the Declaration of Independence up on the same pedestal, I guess, as the Constitution. That was kind of the big how he was able to help make it all make sense.
Yeah. Yeah. With his Gettysburg Address, he kind of tied all that together.
And also, I mean, he was, he wasn't a part of any sort of specific church, but just his knowledge and like just love for the Lord and for Scripture and how that was always kind of the foundation.
Yeah.
It didn't have much to do, like he was okay with of course there was going to be a huge economic crash and and it's just kind of like, yeah, sorry, that's just in order to do the right thing. I guess this is what we have to.
Yeah. I mean, I think the reason why he was able to do the things that he did was because he had the moral framework like underneath all of it. So like all of these things that I'm doing are not for my own personal power. They're not for some sort of political gain. They're not to try to manipulate the system to my personal advantage or my party's advantage. This is just the right thing to do. I have to do the right thing, even if because at its core, slavery was illegal in the United States. It was just legal. And so if your argument is you can never violate the law, no matter how immoral the law is, then, I mean, all manner of terrible, terrible things have happened and would have happened if there weren't people who were willing to say, I don't care what the law says, this is just wrong to do. And we have to fight against that, just on the principle. And so, I'm a rules guy, and I believe that we should have laws and we should follow the laws. And there's things like if we don't follow the law or if we don't have them, then it leads to horrible, horrible chaos. And even if our laws are not great or overly restrictive, or there's too many of all the negative things about having an established system of government that is inefficient and whatever, at the end of the day, if it's wrong, it's wrong. And you have to stop doing things that are wrong. You just have to. Or you die trying. And hundreds of thousands of people did die trying. Lincoln died doing it.
Right.
So, I mean, think what you want about him, but he paid his dues.
Yeah. Cool. Okay. Did we do it?
I think we did it.
We did it.
Now we got to talk about the
actual war.
That's another 2 episodes.
Yep.
But no, Lincoln's a great president. He deserves to be on Mount Rushmore.
Yeah.
I don't know about him having a giant cathedral and he sits on a throne like Lincoln. I don't know about that one, but whatever. Because Jefferson just has a little round thing.
Yeah. Well,
that's a pretty nice round thing.
Theodore Roosevelt's statue got torn down, and he didn't
do anything.
He was one of the most socially progressive presidents of our time.
Yeah, it's almost like
but they didn't like that he was standing next to a Native American because it was it's a power dynamic. Oh. So then they replaced his statue with a plaque that just has his name.
That's pretty much the same thing, right?
Versus him on a horse and a sword or whatever. Have you seen the...
No, I'm kidding.
Oh, okay.
It's not the same thing.
Yeah, okay. Good. It's weird enough. We're going to do a part 3. Have to go to war.
Re-slavery. Bring it back.
Okay. Well, thank you guys for watching.
We did it.
Make sure to like and subscribe. And see you next week.